Jewish Community Against Sex Trafficking is an initiative of National Council of Jewish Women, Chicago North Shore. Established in 2014, its goal is to educate, expand awareness, and combat trafficking activities in our communities. Yes, our communities. JCAST is very proud to have collaborated with many Jewish and secular organizations on the issue of sexual exploitation. On a personal note, I feel privileged to play a part in helping to keep women, girls, men, and boys safe from sex trafficking, sometimes referred to as modern-day slavery. If you want to continue your education on this topic, please go to the National Council of Jewish Women, ChicagoNorthShore.org, or email me directly at spetlin@hotmail.com. There's plenty to learn, plenty to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, Gail L. Nelson is an attorney and consultant partnering with non-for-profit organizations across the country, raising critical resources, engaging thousands of individuals, and building awareness on diverse issues, including gender-based violence. Gail has a 20-year career advocating for criminal justice reform, expanding legal services, empowering leaders with lived experiences, and coaching organization leadership. As the Jewish Community Against Sex Trafficking Chicago's Engagement and Development Director, Gail empowers lay leaders and educates diverse audiences, building awareness and advocating for social change, combating sex trafficking, and expanding the Me Too movement in the Chicagoland area. As part of these efforts, she researched and authored a white paper, Trafficking Throughout the United States. Kathy Carmody is currently a JCAST Chicago board member and speaker. As a volunteer, Kathy is dedicated to building healthy relationships and has focused much of her time in the area of gender-based violence prevention. She has been an active member of the National Council of Jewish Women for more than 25 years. In this capacity, she serves on the Jewish Community Against Sex Trafficking Chicago Steering Committee. She also serves as the board secretary of Between Friends, a domestic violence agency in Chicago. Okay,
Thank you so much, Diane. It's so great to be with all of you. Kathy and I are excited to be part of this and to talk with you today. I'm going to let Kathy be our lead, and I will be typing in the chat. But if you have questions, please type in the chat, and we will get to them throughout the presentation. And we are excited to be with you today.
All right. Everybody, can you see the screen?
Looks good, Kathy.
All right, terrific. So our understanding is, and I assume you can hear me, our understanding is that you wanted to get some information about sex trafficking and also learn how to maybe broach the subject with children and grandchildren, or people who, you know, youth who stroll through your house or whatever. We don't have too much strolling right now, but eventually, hopefully we'll get back to a place where we're all able to be in person. So we want to thank you for supporting a conversation about this difficult topic. And as Sherry said, we call it modern day slavery, and many forms of which have existed over the millennia, right? So, you know, we Jews were slaves in Egypt. We had a civil war over the economic system of slavery in the South. And like other forms of slavery that have ended in one form or another, we're working to end this one too. So we want you to think about this in some new ways that you may not have thought of before. But we also want to, there we go. We also want to know what you want to know about. And so one of the things that you can do in your chat function is let us know what you're here for. Why are you here? What do you hope to get out of this discussion? What do you want to learn? Feel free to, type a comment or a question in the function, in the chat function. And I think later on, we might have time also for in-person questions rather than just chat function, but we'll see how that goes. One note though is while you're thinking or typing, and I'm trying to see if I can get the chat function up so I can see them as well, but I don't know if I can find that. But if the content triggers you at all, please find a way to take care of yourself as you need to. When we do this in person or in a large group, we always say this to people because if you need to get up and walk out of your own room, that's fine. Whether it's just you by yourself or you're in front of 70 people, make sure that you are comfortable enough with the topic of conversation that you take care of yourself. So anything, Gail? I don't really, let me see if I can see the chat. Anything?
Yeah, I'm watching the chat. Everyone's, I'd like to hear what you guys think about and what you're trying to learn. Someone's talking about starting and doing a feasibility study in Washington, DC, and is excited to learn more. And we're excited to have you from DC. So coming from outside of Chicago, that's great. Others? If you feel more comfortable just shouting it out, you can do that as well. Unmute yourself and shout out why you're here. That works too.
I'm here because I want to know what's happening in our area. I'm under the impression there's difficult times in the North Shore and there's a problem. And I'm here to learn about the problem. And that's my question to you. I want to know what's happening on the North Shore that we should be aware of and be concerned about.
That's a great question. We will absolutely talk about how we see it in the North Shore, as well as throughout the area. Others? And so someone's asking about how many youngsters and where are they located? That's a great question. We absolutely have discussions about our estimates because of course it's hard to talk about exact numbers, but we will definitely talk about estimates and where they're located. Absolutely.
Okay, Gail, so I can help. I figured out how to get the chat up.
There you go. Great. A little technology issue, but we're moving forward.
All right, so feel free to, type in your questions. What we'll do is, while you're thinking and typing, tell you a little bit about who we are. For those of you who don't know about JCAST and NCJW, we already told you it was part of NCJW North Shore. But NCJW started here in Chicago in 1893. It was started by a woman named Hannah Solomon, who got really excited that she was getting invited to the World's Fair until she found out that the reason the men were inviting her was because they wanted her to serve coffee. And so she was rather distressed by that, thinking that she was finally sort of breaking through the 1893 glass ceiling. But she didn't. What she did was she went out and started the first Jewish women's organization in the country. And we have a history of working on issues around violence against women. And so our section, like all the sections, focuses on advocacy, education, and community service, but we also started something that was relatively unique in the country when some people got interested in 2013 about sex trafficking. And so in 2014, we started this coalition, JCAST, and we actually got funding from the Jewish Women's Foundation of Metropolitan Chicago for a couple of years to get it off the ground. And we've been going ever since then. We now are integrated with NCJW and sort of manage to stay pretty active in giving presentations. Some of you are, it sounds like, from the suburbs. So we did a program with Etz Chaim in, was it Lombard? Last November, we did a 3-part program with them on Sunday mornings. So going into what you're going to see in much more depth. And so we're happy to work with folks if you want to expand this kind of program even. So we care about this issue because our mission is, improving the lives of women, children, and families. And we actually were doing this at the turn of the 20th century at Ellis Island when NCJW members were protecting the young Jewish women coming across because they were getting lured into the brothels. What did they know? Didn't speak English, whatever. So we have a long history of working in this area. I don't know, Gail, if you want to say more about yourself, but I guess I'll tell stories as I go, as we need to. So you talked about what you wanted to learn. In the time that we have, we want to give you an overview. So we're going to give you some data and some information because you're very curious about what is going on. And I think some of it will surprise you, and feel free to put your surprise in the chat function if that works for you. But we also want to increase your awareness to the vulnerability that our youth and our children have about being trafficked. And we decided we would put it into 4 kind of content areas: social media, pornography, healthy relationships, and consent. And we'll give you a little piece of each of those, knowing that in other programs, each of those can get expanded to an hour and a half just in among themselves. But we also want to give you a little snippet or some tips to increase your comfort level with conversations with children and grandchildren about sex and relationships, because we want you to feel like and find a way to have them see you as a supportive resource. So you may not be the parent. We ended up not having kids. I got nieces and nephews who think I'm the coolest thing since sliced bread because I have an Instagram account and I know how to do WhatsApp, right? And I remember times when, they've asked me things that I can bet they would never ask my brothers or my sister-in-laws. So you want to be able to have a relationship such that when you're talking with the youth, whatever relationship they are to you, that they see you as a supportive resource. And then finally, we're always trying to make things better, right? So for the future, better in our definition means decreasing the number of people who purchase sex as a way to reduce the number of people who are exploited for sex. Because in our world, the way we interpret this, it's a business issue, and we'll talk about that in a second. It's not just about sex; it's really about power and business and big, huge numbers. And so it's a supply and demand issue. So we'll talk about that. Now, first thing you want to know is, is it here? Whoa! Who knows what this building is? Can anybody type it in the function or say it, the name of this building?
Optima building in Skokie.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I live not far from here, and I'm sure a lot of you guys don't either, but I went and took this picture and cut off the top of the name, and we do this presentation, and some people have no idea what this building is. But I knew you guys would know because we're so close, right? So why do you think this building is here in this picture, in this discussion?
Probably
Because there've been girls there.
There?
They picked up sex traffickers.
Yeah, you could say there've been girls there, absolutely. Police broke up a sex trafficking ring that was using
Right.
several apartments there with women trafficked from Thailand. They were busted in like May of 2017, and it had been going on for 3 years. And people living there were wondering, why are these men coming, 24 hours a day up and down the hallways? So when we talk about it being a business, you see that it can be pretty high class business, right? And it can happen anywhere. You recognize the name Robert Kraft. There's some
Yes,
men in the room, right? So he,
Buffalo Bills.
close.
Oh,
Boston, the Patriots, New England Patriots.
Patriots. Oh, Patriots.
But you got the right sport. And of course, everybody knows who Jeffrey Epstein is, right? And so we'll talk about that in a minute. So yes, it happens here. It happens in the Jewish community. What we want you to think about is that this is a business. It's 150 billion, as in dollar business. But there's two parts of it. There's the labor trafficking part, and then there's the sex trafficking part. So we're just going to talk about the sex trafficking part, which is 99 of those $150 billion. And to show you, hopefully this will work, to show you what we're talking about, we've got a 1-minute video that shows you how much of a business this really is.
They mow our lawns and vacuum our offices, paint our nails and paint our houses. They are in the room next door or the house next door. They're in strip malls where anyone can see them, but most of us don't, because most of us don't know where to look. Until now. In 2017, Polaris analyzed one of the largest human trafficking data sets in the United States. We took the broad concepts of sex trafficking and labor trafficking and broke them down into what they really are, criminal operations within 25 distinct businesses. Now, we know where to find them. Now we can start to understand.
Whoops, what happened? Sorry
And
about
how
that.
they got there, how traffickers work, how the businesses are run. Now we know. Now we end it.
All right, so it's a pretty high-powered business. And let's bring it, now that's kind of globally, right? Let's bring it down locally to Chicago and our area, and talk a little bit about sort of the equation of the victims on one side and the Johns on the other. And the Johns are the guys who purchased the sex. So the victims, primarily young women and boys. In Chicago, the 16,000 to 25,000 women and children are per day in the Chicagoland area are trafficked for sex. The average age is 14. Most of them start before the age of 18. So if you look at Gail's picture, behind Gail, and I think I had a picture earlier in the introductory slide, there's what we call traffic teens. And these are life-size cutouts that we use as part of our program, and organizations loan them. We loan them to organizations. I mean, we charge them like $25 just to keep them so we can repair them and everything. But we basically loan them out to colleges, organizations who want to talk about sex trafficking. And on each of these teens, they're life size, so they're between 4.5 and 5.5 feet tall. There's a story, a true story of what one youth had gone through, and one of them is let's see if I can find it. Yes. So you talk about whether or not it happens here on the North Shore. One of the stories, I think might be the woman on the very left there, but I can't really see. Her name is Leah. She's 15 years old. She's from Deerfield, and she's a sophomore in high school. Her friends are dating a lot, but she's dated here and there, but she really never found men that interesting. But she started studying with one of her friends, Stacy, who was in her math class. One day, Stacy kissed her. Now, she wasn't sure what to make of this, but she liked how kind Stacy was. And so they kept studying together, and eventually the bond between them grew. But Leah's mom found out, and she threw her out of the house. She's hanging around in the park one day trying to figure out what to do when she met a woman named Missy, who offered her a place to sleep, because remember, she got kicked out of the house. So she would offered a place to sleep after she heard Leah's story. Next morning, Leah woke up and she found that the room was locked, and it was locked for days. Nothing to eat. But when they finally opened the door and unlocked it, men came in and out, and she was forced to have sex with them. That's how she gets caught in sex trafficking. So that's a situation easily on the North Shore. So one of the things we want to talk about, want to raise your awareness about, is how do we speak with our children when they don't exhibit the same values or the same things we expect of them? And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go. But that's one of the examples of how these young girls turn into victims. It's not just, you know, African-American women on the South and Southwest sides. It's everywhere. And as it says, 1 out of 3 runaway teens are trafficked within 48 hours. The pimps, I'll mention the name now because we're getting more and more data about her. Jeffrey Epstein's, I guess you would call her the pimp, the madam, Ghislaine Maxwell. They know where to go find these girls. They know what parks to hang out in. They know which schools to go to. They know where to find the runaways, and 30% of them are trafficked within 48 hours. So let's look at the other side of the equation. For the Johns, it's a name for a colloquial name for a man who purchases sex, and it's usually men. They vary in Chicago by, you know, age, race, education, income level. 79% of them have been to college. And the average age when they start purchasing sex is 21. So whether or not that's sort of the old days where the father says, hey, you're 21 now, you need to know how to do this, or what, that seems to be the reporting for them. Anyway, they reported that the average time that they started was when they were 21. But they also have a regular sex partner, meaning a spouse or a significant other. And they still are doing this at least once a month or more. We know at least one Jewish John lives in Highland Park because his name and picture were put in the paper when Tom Dart, the Cook County sheriff, when they did a sting recently. So it's kind of everywhere. Curious if you want to mention or type in any of this. Is what sort of most surprising to you about this? Anything strike you as a surprise?
That even Jewish people get involved?
Involved in which way?
Both ways, obviously.
Yeah, well, very rich ones. We know about some very rich ones, right? With
Right.
Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, I think when you read the cool thing about Talia Carner, so we did a program, a book club with her recently, where she did the first half of the meeting and we did the second half of the meeting. And that's what she talked about. You got to read that book. It's really interesting about a whole Jewish, basically mafia of sex trafficking going on in Buenos Aires. And so you'll see how that works if you read the book. It's a quick read, and it's interesting story, and most of it's a true story, but fictionalized. But yes, it does happen. I don't know if we know of any specific youth from the Jewish community, but we hear a lot about the men. Oh, and I like whoever has baseball in the background. I'll try not to watch.
I think the other piece is, we have to remember when 20 years ago, we didn't think there was domestic violence in our community. Now we know better. And I think we will find the same thing about sex trafficking too.
Yes, and from Avi, the low number of arrests, isn't that interesting? Tom Dart obviously tries to manage some of that by doing these stings around. So you can imagine now what they would normally do, and not in COVID times, but around the World Series, for instance, right now, and around the Super Bowl, there are huge stings that occur because there's so many people at those big major events, March Madness, all these big events. And there's a huge, huge impetus for sex trafficking, and they try to infiltrate and I wouldn't be surprised if they still did some kind of sting because during the pandemic, this doesn't stop just because of the pandemic. If anything, it makes the women more vulnerable to the virus. When you do your talk, stay focused on the places where it actually occurs. Well, I do some work as a member of the board of Between Friends, which is a DV agency not far from Ezra Habanim in North Rogers Park. I'm part of the JCARS Domestic Violence Coalition, and JCFS has been working very hard to work with the rabbis and the synagogues because domestic violence does occur here, and it does occur, and they have a whole program that they called either safe school, safe shul, safe schools, safe homes. That the abuse of children definitely occurs in the Jewish community, and it definitely occurs in the Orthodox community. And so one of the things that we don't want to do is assume that we're any different than any other community. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with economics. It has to do with power and control. And we'll talk about that in a minute too.
And something that came up in the chat as well is, just like people that are caught in domestic violence, it takes them a number of times before they're successful in leaving the situation because of the power and control that's exerted. And you see that in sex trafficking too.
Right. Oh boy, great questions, you guys. Fraternities, we've tried to get into the universities. We haven't had much luck working with them. A lot of them do their own part with this. We'll talk when we talk about consent. We'll talk a little bit about universities. Forgive me, Gail, or Sherry. I can't remember the name of the playwright who wrote about the sex trafficking and domestic violence plays that we saw some years ago. One of them was about the girl, it did include suicide issues. So yeah, sometimes it's the only way they can get out. When you read Talia's book, you'll see some examples of that as well. So Talia does a great job of taking all the issues and making them part of her story. And it was one of the first audiobooks I ever listened to because I was weeding while I was doing it. And I mean, I just listen, the book was great. So I encourage you to read it. So let's keep going so we can get to some more issues. And I'll make this quick. The perceptions around women in this work has shifted over the past, 60 years. It used to be that they were thought of themselves as sex workers, right? But so they didn't want to see themselves necessarily as victims. They wanted to be thought of as workers and volunteers, some of them. But our point of view, and throughout this presentation, we don't really want to impose our values on you. But one of the things we do share as our value is around the nature of whether prostitution should be legalized. And our point of view is that it should not be, because we really don't think women should be bought and sold like a sack of potatoes. And so there's, it's a worldwide issue. There are pros and cons to each side. That just happens to be our belief, is that one reason we're trying to end this is because, if I asked my niece when she was 10 years old what she wanted to be when she grew up, she wouldn't say, oh, I want to be a prostitute. So it's around economics. If there are more economically viable ways for these women to exist, they would probably not choose this profession. And so that's why we keep insisting that this is more about economics. And so now in the past 20 years, the focus has been more on how do you reduce demand? It's a business issue. And so people are starting to take a business approach to ending it. The other thing is that you'll notice some language shifts. So in the old days, we used to talk about child prostitutes, right? There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a child prostitute. If you're under 18 and this is happening to you, you are a victim. And that's how the law is looking at it now. And especially in Illinois, we've got some great laws in Illinois about these things. And so that to us is progress, that even if you can shift the language, that you're going to help shift people's point of view. Okay, so now we probably got your attention, right? We need to define sex trafficking. It's a part of human trafficking, which is defined as, recruiting and transporting people within or across boundaries by force, fraud, or coercion. But it doesn't have to be across boundaries. So you can still have it just within Illinois, or just within Chicago. The force part is often used during the early stages when you're trying to season, quote unquote, season somebody. And again, if you can use Talia's book as an example, you'll see how they season the girls. It breaks their resistance, make them easier to control. And you will use some of these techniques to do that. But fraud also works, right? False job offers, women and children responding to an advertisement that promises, you can be a maid or a waitress. And then when they get to that part of the world or that part of the country, obviously there's nothing there. They end up being prostitutes. The coercion part usually includes a plan or a pattern to cause the victim to believe that not doing something. So if I don't have sex with this person, they're going to harm me or they're going to go get my family. So like with Leah's story, I'm sure they told her that if she didn't do this, they were going to go back and get her parents. So again, just want to make sure you understand, if somebody's under 18, this is not voluntary. They're a victim. Questions about that? Oh, Mary Bonnet. Yes, Mary Bonnet. Okay, thank you. Good place. All right, so now who is being trafficked? So we talked about some of the young girls, but it is mostly females, as well as those from the LGBTQ community. So homeless, locked out youth, people who are, isolated, disengaged from their world or their communities. Many have prior experience with sexual abuse and violence. And then poverty is an issue. And you can understand now why it's domestic violence and some of these issues are increasing during the COVID shutdown. People are losing their jobs. They don't have any money. What are they going to do? Immigrants are usually what we think of when we think of sex trafficking. And then in general, and I think we'll have a link later for you to look. I think it was in Psychology Today, maybe, about sex trafficking and or just relationships and COVID, that people are more at risk because of COVID. And when we talk about pornography, the joke that I've heard is that now the porn is about trying to kiss with masks and get people out of their hazmat suits. So everybody, it's business, they'll adapt. The luring of it, we've hinted at that a little bit. I don't know if any of you saw Leaving Neverland, the documentary about Michael Jackson. It's like two-hour sections. It's long, but it's very, very well done. If you get a chance, at least look at the first 2 hours, because the director actually creates the movie in a way that you, the viewer, are lured in as if you were one of the children that Michael Jackson was going after. And it is so well done, and it shows you how this grooming and how this seasoning works. And it's very frightening, because the mothers, they let the kids go sleep with Michael Jackson for the weekend, huh? Right? So there was a lot of grooming going on over many years. The gymnastics cases, Dr. Nasser, right? The women being abused with their mothers sitting in the same exam room with a curtain there, and the daughters never saying anything. So what is it that makes this happen? We try to create relationships and understanding and values so that the first time that somebody will say something. And then I pulled this picture of Epstein and Maxwell off the web. And I heard today actually that a judge has ruled that Gail, you're the lawyer, but whatever the documents are that
Transcripts.
Yeah, the-
the transcripts of her talking, of her talking about what happened. She had transcripts with the grand jury, and she was trying to keep those secret.
and are we assuming then that the way she groomed all the girls and everything will be in those transcripts?
Yes.
Okay, that's going to be cool. So we'll be able to maybe put some of that in our presentations in the future.
Something we can learn from in the future.
Exactly. I think the large majority of people who are lured into sex trafficking have one thing in common, and that is that they're living in a desperate situation, and this desperation makes them vulnerable to the traffickers, you know, to an offer of an exciting job or romance, right? Sometimes it's romance, and sometimes it's just food and shelter. So we think of, when we think about it with minors, it's really a severe form of child abuse. And they're more, the teens who experience sexual abuse as children are more susceptible, a lot of the studies show, to experiencing sex trafficking as older teens and as adults. But it's the commercial aspect of it that separates the crime of trafficking from sexual assault and just, you know, like teen dating violence. So when the pattern of abuse begins in adolescence, and sometimes it starts between 12 and 18, the adult intimate partner violence, which is another phrase for domestic violence, tends to be even more acute. But many parents have no idea how this trafficking occurs in their community, and they really don't know how to identify any of the signs. So here's a very quick, so the Making of a Girl video here, that's like a 5-minute one. We're not going to show that. And that is about a girl in the South or Southwest side and how she was groomed into the business. But you wouldn't think about Wisconsin, would you? Wisconsin is a huge problem. And here's how one woman got lured.
I befriended the guy's girlfriend. So I befriended his girlfriend, and then we became friends. And you know, it's you're young and you like to have a best friend or feel like you have a best friend, and you know, it's fun to go with someone to get your nails done, and so they lure you into materialistic items.
So it gets to a point where, you know, the luring becomes very subtle. And so one of the things you want to do when you're watching, you know, people around you is make sure you look for warning signs, which we'll talk about. But so the opportunity areas for discussion in the next half hour or so that we want to do, and also there'll be time for more questions, is around media, social media, pornography, healthy relationships, and consent, all thinking about the background with COVID-19. Because most of the questions we get are, well, how the heck do I start a conversation about this? And so we thought this might be some areas where, you know, you can have a conversation. Things might come up where you can start a conversation. So for example, you know, nowadays kids get phones at what, 12, 13, maybe even younger. So they're being exposed to this stuff all the time. And the purpose that we want for you is for you to be able to help them understand the difference between stereotypes and reality. Because it's very hard sometimes for them to know the difference when all they see are all this media. And so we did a little research around cultural messages, and I laugh because we've got some relatively new neighbors in the back with a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old and a little baby. And yesterday when I was in the yard and all muddy, I hear Lucy calling, Kathy, 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 and I go over to the fence. And we have to stay apart, and she understands that we can't touch. So her parents have done a good job teaching her about the virus at the age of 4. But there she is in her pink princess outfit, because they had been to a Halloween party already for the kids, I guess. Well, I thought it was hysterical, but I was so unprepared. I could have said, oh, Lucy, you're going to be a princess for Halloween. If I see her again between now and Halloween, I'm going to ask her, what kind of princess is she going to be? Does she want to be an astronaut princess? Does she want to be a doctor princess? Because the messages we get around princessing are not the same as we might think. So I did a little search on princess culture. So if you go into your Google and you search princess culture, you get 366 million hits. So yeah, it's an issue, right? So girls are hypersexualized as a result of being princesses. Their sense of self, how does this affect them? So a lot of things around princessing that we want to watch out for. On the men's side, I don't know if you've ever heard of the man box. It was an idea started in Oakland, in the Oakland Men's Project in the 80s, and picked up by a guy named Tony Porter, who did this TED Talk, and you can also watch this TED Talk. In our longer programs, we would play a little bit of this for you. And here his point is, men have stereotypes just as much as women. They have to be the protector. They have to be aggressive, you know, they can't be gay. They can't show emotions. And so they get stuck in a box just as much as the girls get stuck in their princess outfit. And one of the things he works to do is to make sure that men understand they can be a lot more than in a box. But then there's also, so like with Leah, what do you do about the youth nowadays who are very comfortable saying, I don't want to be a boy today. I don't want to be a girl. I don't want to be anything today. And so how do you handle that? And so this gender neutrality piece, they don't like to be defined. They don't like to be told who to be. So guess what? Did you know that the Field Museum has started calling its dinosaurs they? So Sue is now a Z, a Z-H-E. And so they've tried even to do it in the museum so that the youth in don't feel as much categorized, I guess is how you can put it, as what they used to be in our day. So there's a lot going on with cultural messages. What, anybody want to type in or mention some cultural messages that you think you're dealing with the youth in your life right now? Anybody want to share something? You have to unmute yourself or type. But that's okay if you don't. Anyway, it's just to get you to think about it. All right, so let's move into where does pornography fit into this? Because our goal is to inform you about sex trafficking. We need to really discuss how, and it's mainly men, right? Mainly men who are the purchasers, the profiteers, and the perpetrators come to see purchasing sex as acceptable. I think one of the unique things about Ghislaine Maxwell is that she is a female. And we don't have a lot of examples of females in this business, but the two of them clearly were profiting in some sets. We don't know exactly how, maybe by access to the rich and powerful. But again, as I mentioned, whether or not purchasing sex should be legal or not, that's up to you. We have our belief, and you need to work with your families around your belief. But we don't see it as a valid business proposition. So it's awkward. I know it's hard to talk about. You're probably glad you're sitting in a room behind a screen. And TikTok, yeah. So here's some interesting things. 35% of all internet downloads are porn.
Oh my God.
Okay, all internet downloads. So when you're downloading a movie, you know, think that 35% are porn. And when you talk to youth about when they're online doing their homework, which probably has even increased more now because of the pandemic, 70% of them have accidentally clicked on porn. How do they do this? Well, the porn guys know how youth sometimes misspell things. And so they buy the URL that's one letter off and maybe one typo off, so that if a kid mistypes something, he ends up at a porn site. So there's that. And I can't really see which one you've got. So the 42 billion, Pornhub is probably the biggest site, not that I know from experience, but 42 billion hits over or views in the past in 2019. And I think probably one of the more interesting pieces, though, is that almost half of the purchasers of sex say they do it because they want to obtain a sex act that either their partner is uncomfortable doing or that they're uncomfortable asking of their partner, or their partner refuses to perform it. So those men who are purchasing more than once a month, so there's, is there something wrong in the relationship? I don't know. Why can they talk about it or not talk about it? One of the things we'll talk about is when we talk about consent, how do you encourage people to talk about this? And we know, in all marriages, of course, there are issues, but how do you talk about it and deal with it? So that's why sort of there is pornography. I think, let's see, no, that's fine. Questions, comments about that? I look forward to hearing what Mickey means by TikTok, but. So on the other hand, this is not, the kind of pornography we knew in the old days from Playboy magazine, right? I mean, things are still the same. It still skews sexual and relationship expectations, but now it's more real than ever because it moves. It's in movies. It's right there in your hand. It still objectifies and degrades people, and it desensitizes viewer even more to violent sexual behavior because they see it on video. And of course, there's not your usual, what should we say, who's the artist who paints the voluptuous women? So, we have the unrealistic expectations about body appearance. And yet one of the things you can say is, these online videos that you like to watch, they're staged. I mean, they're kind of exciting and everything, but remember, they're staged and they're not examples of real behavior. So the reason I put Grand Theft Auto in there is when my brother was bringing up his two boys, and the oldest one just turned 30. So this would have been, 20 years ago or so. Yes, he let them play Grand Theft Auto, but only if he was in the room. Because in Grand Theft Auto, from what I remember, having watched this interaction, there's a lot of, shooting in cars and shooting of hookers and whatever. And they would do this and the boys would get a big kick out of it. And my brother would say, remember, this is not real. And he would say that so many times that recently when I started, within the past few years, when I grew up in St. Louis. So when I went home for Thanksgiving or something, and I told the story that I'm starting to do these programs, and I said, I'm going to use you guys as an example. And the two boys both immediately said, Dad always says, remember, it's not real. So there are ways you can get through. They can still experience these things and understand the difference between reality and fiction. And that's probably one of the most important things, is you want to educate them, but not blame them. You were going to say something, Gail?
I was going to say, even if you don't think that they're listening, they are.
Yes, exactly. Oh, okay. Yeah, TMI. Yeah. Okay. So that's great, Mickey. So when we get to how do you have this conversation, you've got some real opportunities now with TikTok to plan some of these conversations, and we'll give you a structure for how to do that if you're not real comfortable doing that. And I want to move kind of quickly here, but the point is that schools, from this slide, the difference between EQ and IQ is really important, and they're starting to pay more attention now to the emotional, socio-emotional side of children in schools. And, when you think about it, so how many of you get texts from your younger ones with all these emojis? I think emojis are great. And it's a great opportunity if you had to have a conversation with them when you talk to them, because you can say, hey, you had this emoji on this recent text. I'm not sure what that meant. Find out, do they know what emotions they're sending when they send these emojis? Help them learn the language of emotion and help them learn to experience empathy and understand some of these things. So, all right, questions about that? And yet, the keys to a healthy relationship are such that it's something, again, what are your values in terms of healthy relationships? What do you want your children or the teens in your life to value in a partner or a friend? You know, you can use some of these labels, you can come up with your own labels, but we want to make sure that you think about stuff. So many of you might know John Gottman as I guess he's a therapist, he's a guru about relationships. And he learned he could almost predict which marriages would not last based on the behaviors of the couple in the room where he was. And he would notice things like eye rolling and certain behaviors that would show contempt, for instance. And if he saw a lot of certain behaviors, he could almost guarantee that this relationship would not last. So you can educate yourself about some of these things so that when you see these behaviors in your children, your grandchildren with their significant others, you can go, oh no, we got a problem here, we need to deal with this, so that you can start identifying that as well. I mean, we could spend a day on this, but I'll keep going. And then, of course, with the youth, is it attraction or is it friendship? They always want to know. You know, it's like hormones, but we can't tell you. We don't know. How the heck does anybody know? The point is you want to distinguish with them a difference between having strong emotions and strong negative emotions and negative behaviors. So you don't want them to act negatively out on their negative emotions, but it's okay to have those emotions. So they need to learn that it's okay to do that. And the keys to the relationship are talking about them. And of course, now we have to have a little bit of humor. And so today I found on the web, I knew there was Zen Judaism, but I had never before seen a picture of the Buddha with the menorah behind him. So now we have a picture of the Buddha with the menorah behind him. And the story is from Zen Judaism that the Buddha taught that one should practice loving kindness to all sentient beings. But hey, still, would it kill you to find a nice sentient being who happens to be Jewish? So that's the humor of the moment. Questions, comments so far? All right, so when we talk about educating anybody really, even though what you see now comes from a teen dating violence program that Between Friends uses, and that a lot of people will use this, what we call the spectrum of healthy, unhealthy, and unsafe. It's one way that students are taught to think about relationships and interpersonal behaviors. And it's a way for them to learn how to also have language around something that happens so that they can figure out what to do. And as you see, as we go through this, it's not really an easy distinction. So let's go through a few. I can see a few of you. I don't see a lot, but what I'm gonna do is show you some behaviors. And what I'd like you to do is, if you think it's healthy, thumbs up. If you think it's unhealthy or you're not sure, thumb sideways. If you think it's unsafe, thumbs down. So let's do a few of these for fun. So my child argued with me about curfew. Healthy, unhealthy, or unsafe? Gail, you can see more people than I can. What's it look like? I see 2 healthy thumbs.
Yes, I see some thumbs. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, gosh, you'd rather have them argue with you about curfew than just like run away and not show up, right? So having them at least argue gives you a chance to have a conversation. So my friend was mad at me that I went to the mall with someone else and they yelled at me. Healthy, unhealthy, or unsafe? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm seeing a little bit of, I'm seeing some unsure. That it could be a mixture of a lot of things.
Yeah, why do you think that is? It's partly because of what we bring to the table, right? So we might bring to the table that somebody getting mad at me is controlling me. But we might also bring to the table that we have a close enough relationship that they can tell me in some way. It may not have been the most constructive way, but at least they're willing to tell me they're mad at me about something. So again, think about how you want these issues to be dealt with. My friend invited me to spend the weekend at their parents' cabin with other classmates. Of course, that wouldn't be happening probably right now, but in general, healthy, unhealthy, or unsafe? Yeah, I see a lot.
Only with chaperones.
Yeah, exactly. So that shows you that that's fine. You can talk about it. You have to figure out what your conditions are and what your expectations are. But here's another one. My partner said, we don't need to use condoms because, you know, they don't feel right. Healthy, unhealthy.
No way.
Yeah, that's pretty unsafe, right? In this day and age. So you want to teach how to deal with that kind of conversation. So when I was at my friend's house, they showed me where their parents' gun was. Okay. Even if you live in a place with guns being legal, it's still not a smart idea. My friend asked me if I was in the mood for sex. Healthy, unhealthy, unsafe. Oh yeah, we teach that this is pretty healthy, right? This is about consent. If you're in the mood for sex or not, that's one of the first steps of consent, rather than just going after somebody. So when somebody, what we teach the youth is you need to talk about whether or not you want to have sex. When we go to consent, we'll talk about that a little more. And then my friend asked me to send a picture of me with my pants down, and I'm not a representative in Congress, and I'm not a CNN analyst. Yeah. Unsafe, you're not going to get hurt. Physically, you're not going to get hurt, right? But it's pretty stupid. It's pretty unhealthy. It shows that there's some unhealthiness going on. Is it healthy?
Not normal. Not normal.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, but you know, when you get these new toys, the youth, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, you know, and I was a kid in the 50s and 60s, right? And I remember going into swimming pools with boys and girls, and everybody would sort of take down their bathing suit. I mean, you know, so when you're at a certain stage, you're curious, and that's okay. But now you got cameras, which can sort of ruin you for life if you're not careful. So that's what's hard to impress upon the kids now, is that these things stay in some database somewhere forever and ever and ever. Any of these you've been confronted with lately, or anything you're being confronted with that you're curious about? Yeah, and then the picture gets circulated. Okay, so here's some warning signs. If you're looking for what might be considered an unhealthy relationship, it's not necessarily any one of these things. Certainly taken together, you might question a relationship. In the domestic violence field, at least between friends, probably 90 to 95% of the clients experience economic and financial abuse, way more than the physical or sexual violence. Usually in domestic situations, the physical violence comes near the end of the relationship. But the threats, the emotional abuse, economic and financial abuse, that's almost always there. Because abusive relationships are about power and control, not love. And that's something you can really teach the youth. There's a couple links down there. The ndvh.org is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. There's a ton of information there that you can go grab. And then the CDC has, you know, they do vaccines, but they also do a lot of other things. And they do a lot of violence prevention work. And so you can look up the violence prevention piece. They do a lot of work on dating and trying to teach youth about safe dating. What about Shalva? Yes, Shalva is another domestic violence organization. I happened to join the board of Between Friends because at the time, one of the women who was the executive director, the former executive director, came up to me at one of the meetings and said, "Kathy, we'd like you on our board. You know, we think you're cool." And I'm like, who's she talking to? And at the time, I was looking to do something that was not faith-based. So Shalva, the Y, they tend to be sort of two faith-based organizations. And I was looking for one that was not faith-based and also a little more anti-patriarchy than some of the organizations that we have out there right now. Between Friends is really trying to work from the point of view that it's a systemic problem. It's not just a problem of economics, because it happens at all economic, all religion, all status, all education levels. But we tend to look at it as a systemic problem. And the more we can, it's like, What?
You are viewing Kathy C's screen.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so it's more like racism or any of these other
It's not.
large systemic things. So let's go to consent real quick, 'cause we've only got a few more minutes. So the reason I've got this is I asked my niece, who went off to college last year, what are they teaching you guys about consent these days? She sent back this picture from the back of the bathroom stall. So this is how they're teaching kids in college on all the bathroom stalls. They're speaking, you know, it's like having Shalva or any of the other organizations in bathroom stalls in the synagogues. This is in college dorms. This is on the back of all the doors, teaching them what consent is. They have a little more formal way of doing it, though. She had to go to a musical. They now do consent in musicals so that they can listen to the songs. And I think New York University does that as well. So there are a lot of ways they're teaching about consent. How it helps, I don't really know, but at least they're starting to talk about it. And it's about boundaries, right? It's about physical boundaries, emotional, boundaries of time. How much time are you willing to give? Intellectual boundaries, sexual boundaries, material boundaries. We have all these kind of boundaries that we want. So what kind of healthy sexual boundaries are you teaching your children? And then loveisrespect.org is another place you can go to find more information, because maybe and I don't know are not yes. And so one of the things that youth are being taught is what's yes and what's not yes. But there's the cutest, this is the cutest thing. We'll only play a little bit of it for you. It's called T-Consent. And you can you stick T-Consent into YouTube and it'll come up. But there's two versions. There's a clean version and then there's one with cuss words. We're gonna share the clean version. And it's a way that almost all these teen dating violence programs are starting to use this little video, starting in like 7th grade. So 7th grade on up. And we'll play about a minute of this, but I have to get to it through YouTube. So hang on a second.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? They go, oh my God, I would love a cup of tea. Thank you. Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you could make them a cup of tea or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no, thank you, then don't make them tea at all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, yes, please, that's kind of you. And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea.
All right, that's enough for that. But let's see if I can get back to this and pull this down for you guys. There we go. That's just a little bit of an enticement. You can watch the rest of it on YouTube. It's such a simple metaphor and it works so well. The youth get it. I mean, you get it right away, right? I mean, it's like impossible not to get this. And so this has been a real boon to people trying to explain what consent is about. So, okay, so we talked about those 4 topics real quick. Let's sort of get to the practical side of this, which is, what are you trying to do when you have a conversation about any of these things that we've talked about? You want to just acknowledge that, this person is curious about sex, whatever it is. The point is, it's important that you plan for it and that you not just sort of go in and think everything's going to be fine because you're ready, because what if the other person isn't ready? So you really want to identify what you want the people to know. And another, I'll make this short, but another story here about picking the timing that works for them and not just you, as well as a positive time and place to talk. I was thrilled when I found this picture of the mom and daughter, because I grew up with 4 brothers. And so there really was like no place for us to talk except in the car or the bathroom. And unfortunately, the car became the place where the serious, not fun stuff was always being talked about. And so I became, had an association of not such good things with being in the car with my mom for a while. And so I vowed never to do that, to vary the places where I have serious conversations with people, even including my husband, so that he doesn't associate, oh, if I sit at the table with this or with this coffee mug, that it's going to be a serious conversation. And so I try to think about, what the intent is of the conversation that I'm having. And remember, it's not a lecture. They should talk more than you do. The whole point of this, though, you got to let them know. You look them in the eye and you say, I want to be here for you now, and I always want to be here for you, so that they'll come to you whenever they have any kind of questions. So here's some tips, a real quick and dirty set of steps if you want to give it a try sometime. Obviously, first thing you got to do is create rapport. If they come home from school and they got a D on an exam, it's probably not a good time to have a conversation. But you want to plan out the conversation. You want to figure out what the topic is. Say you want to have a conversation about porn, right? I saw that you were looking at porn. It's no big deal. I'm not mad at you, but there's some things I want you to know, and I want us to talk about. And then you ask what they know about it. What do they know about relationships? What do they know about sex? But you do have to express your position and your philosophy. This is the place where you want to express your values, because how else are they going to get them? You don't want them to get them off the internet. You want them to have values. Of course, they may rebel against them. The odds are they will. But at some point, they'll probably come back around. And so you want to continue to express the values that work in your family. You've got to be open to discussing things, and yet you've got to describe any of the rules, right? Okay, so as a result of maybe some of the behaviors you're worried about, you're going to put a curfew in, and they got to be in by curfew. And then just like you would in any other kind of conversations, almost like a business conversation, right? Thank them and let them know you're there for you. Why does it sound like a business conversation? Because any conversation that we plan is kind of awkward, but yet it's going to be more successful. I'm sitting here. I mean, I've done this presentation lots of times, but I don't ever do one without my notes sitting in front of me because I'm afraid I'm going to have a brain blackout, right? So there's nothing wrong with you having a cheat sheet with you of things that you want to talk about. And if you're interested, we can send you the slides and stuff so you don't have to take notes on this, but it's a way for you to think about having a conversation and having a structure to the conversation that you both can follow. So, Roberta's raising her hand. What's your question, Roberta?
Maybe not.
She can
Okay,
ask.
go ahead, Kathy. My bad.
Oh, okay. So, if you think about, the nature of having an effective conversation, it's more effective when you have some kind of structure to it. Questions about the steps? You could go back to them. Why do you want to thank anybody for having a conversation with you? Because one of the biggest skills is to show respect and to show that you're listening. And so if you thank them, I think at any age, they're going to feel respected. But we want to continue to make change, right? And you're doing that.
Huh? You're unmuted, my audio.
You're starting to do that now by educating yourselves. You can educate your family and your colleagues. We want to continue to change attitudes and perceptions by listening. And, make sure that you have zero tolerance for locker room talk, whether it's the girls' locker room or the boys' locker room. I'm in girls' locker rooms all my life. We aren't so great either. We objectify guys just like the guys objectify us, right?
That's what I want to say.
Yeah, we all do that. So, and we want, there's different ways you can take action. Is that a hand up? You have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I do. It seems to me as though you're lecturing to parents with younger children, teens, young adults. I'm being very bored by what you are discussing because we have grandchildren, we have great grandchildren. We don't get involved with that.
We're beyond that point.
Or we're way beyond that point at this right now. So I would like to hear more about what is being done in regards to the trafficking. Who's presenting the information to the public? How are the people involved expressing to the public and or just controlling it or trying to control it? That's what I would like to hear more of.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for your comments. The great grandchildren, that's pretty cool. These kind of conversations can come up anytime. Any relationship conversations can come up anytime. And so one of the reasons we talk about it as from children's point of view is the child could be 60 years old and still not in a great relationship, right? Or the child could be 6 years old and not in a great relationship. So we think about this from all ages, but in terms of what the request for us was more, I think, to focus on this side of things. But if you want to know more about sort of the enforcement, sort of the law enforcement, what's being done about it, Tom Dart has created these coalitions across the country. He's been doing great work, and they do a lot of anti-sex trafficking work. They do a lot of stings. They probably do, they probably have resources to do 2 or 3 a year. And if you look carefully in the papers or on the web, the Trib is always publishing when they have these stings. But there's not a lot of resources out there for this. It's part of the problem is that the demand is so high, and there's not a lot of resources for reducing the demand. That's why we try to educate youth early on and are trying to create so many teen dating violence and teen relationship programs, is so that the young boys start respecting girls more and they start respecting relationships more. And so they're more likely to not engage in these kind of behaviors. And it takes a long time, but that was a great question.
All right. One of the things is that my wife and I both grew up in a very different environment. We've been there, done that, but yet we did it. I'm trying to think of a proper phrase, but we did it respectfully. That's how we were brought up.
It was a different era.
It was a different era. And so that's why this is starting to be boring to me and my wife. So is there something that is being done more positively, as you were saying with Dart? He's doing some programs, but you haven't really mentioned what he does with those programs. So,
right. Well, unfortunately, the topic that we were tasked with talking about was more about how to have conversations with children and youth around sex trafficking. So it wasn't really about that topic, but we could certainly, if you put your email in the chat and say you want to know more about some of the enforcement things, we could certainly send you some links. Sorry that you were bored, didn't understand really what the topic was tonight. But we, in some of our lengthier programs, we talk a little bit more about enforcement, but that really wasn't the topic tonight. So
I think, that when you think about enforcement, that makes it someone else's job to end it. And what we would say is that there are not many police officers that are out there. And if we really want to end this, it's on all of us to change the perspective of what's going on. And all of us can be involved in that. We're all part of the society that we live in.
It's a matter of, if you see it, say it.
Great. And when we did our program with Hadassah last fall, that's exactly what they wanted to hear as well. And so we spent some time talking about how do you see it and how do you say it. So different, we can talk about it in different ways. That just really wasn't what we were tasked with tonight, but certainly that's exactly what we're trying to do, is get you to talk about any kind of issue you see in a relationship or behavior in someone that you're a little concerned about. Because if no one's paying attention to that 13-year-old girl who's all sullen and has got her hair like this and is, the next thing you know, she could be some handsome man on the street by her high school could come start paying attention to her. And the next thing you know, she's a prostitute because she can't get away. So there are little things that we can do and we can watch for.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks for the question. So we've got a couple minutes left. Let's finish on how much courage do you guys have? Are you ready to start a conversation or at least think about it? What's one word for what you're thinking now as a result of this evening presentation? Well, we heard one word was boring. That's fine. If you've got some other words, stick them in the chat or let us know, as well as what are you going to do differently as a result of having spent an hour and a half here?
Patience.
Ah, boy, I wish, yeah. Can I get an injection, please? I could use some of that. So feel free to type your answer into the chat function, and thank you very much. It's always tough to do these things via Zoom because we're used to a lot more interaction. But for those of you who want to hang around, I can hang around as long as somebody tells me what the baseball score is. But
and there was a question here talking about doctors and teachers. There are new programs for doctors in emergency rooms because they are seeing that's one of the few places where those that are trafficked come up because then they're hurt. And so doctors need help having these conversations and also identifying that they are the situations.
Yeah, the Federation, the JCFS has a lot of programs from the Jewish side of all these things. And you can go to, I think it's just jcfs.org and look up a lot of what they do. There's a organization downtown called Resilience, which used to be Rape Victims Advocates, but I can never say the name, so I'm glad they changed their name. And they work a lot on reducing sexual assault, which is often connected with domestic violence. So there's a lot of services in Chicago, just as usual, not enough, right? So
Kathy, the score is 5-0 Tampa Bay.
Woo! Okay.
And while I have the mic, I just want to thank you. I really learned a lot. I think you know your stuff.
Oh,
and I found it very interesting. I think that we thought we were going to talk more about what's happening. I even brought it up in the community because we heard that there's a lot of sex trafficking in all the suburbs. And I thought we were going to hear a little bit more of that. But I actually think we got more out of what you had to say. And I really thank you.
You're welcome. So we, when we do the one in the western suburbs, we should, instead of showing the picture of the Optima building, there's a little storefront in Lombard that we show that was in the paper where there was a sex trafficking going on at a massage parlor. So depending on where you live, we could probably find you something. But, I'm not sure what you mean when you say more about what's going on here. I'm fortunate I don't know anybody personally who's had this experience except for Marion Hatcher and some of the people whom I've met in my volunteer work, but I've never had, I have a friend now who, she's pretty much retired to Florida, but we do kind of domestic violence counseling over Facebook because her husband is so awful, but she's got to be in her late 70s, maybe, or mid 70s. She doesn't want to leave them. She doesn't have any resources. All I can do is keep offering, find your local place, find a counselor, do this. What can you do? How can you protect yourself? I think he's only hit her once, and that was many decades ago. But so you sort of never know when it's going to pop up. That's why these people are so highly trained. I was trained to work the crisis line. I had to go through what's called 40-hour training. And so I also volunteer on the crisis line, which is very gratifying for me as a retiree. Because yeah, it's out there. I mean, I had a call when I first started doing that from a woman in a high rise downtown whose husband was off on a business trip and he wasn't coming back till Thursday night. And so she went and called, she was going to call the, maintenance department, whatever, to put a lock on a bedroom door so that, she find a place to hide. So we did some safety planning. And I said, great. I said, is there another door out of that room? And she says, no. I said, well, then I don't think you want to lock yourself into it if you can't get out. And so there's all sorts of things. I mean, it's everywhere. And so, I don't want to really, I wouldn't want to do a whole hour of depressing stories, right? I'd rather find ways to give you a few tips and tools to handle if you think someone is in this kind of situation. You send them to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, or you can't tell your friends anything. All of us have had friends who weren't in great relationships, right? But did they get out? Not right away. And so for us to be there and just to listen to them, that's often what they need.
And, for a while there was, of course, these services for those that are escaping these situations are very expensive, and there are not many of them in the community. For a little while, we had a safe house in this area for those that were exiting sex trafficking, and it recently moved up to Wisconsin. And so we need to support these types of services as well and learn about that, and because they're very expensive and people can't escape if they have nowhere to go.
Right. So Shalva, for instance, somebody asked about Shalva. Shalva will give a woman on the North Shore money to go stay at a hotel, because a lot of the women on the North Shore, they can get all the Ferragamos they want, but they have no disposable assets of their own. So, it's really tough. If they finally decide to leave, they usually don't have anything. And I grew up in a violent household. And one of the reasons I moved to Chicago was to go to business school, because I vowed that I was never going to be without my own resources. And so, I decided that independence was the way I was going to go. And I didn't have a lot of strong, healthy relationships in my world when I was growing up. And so that's kind of how I got interested in this. But everybody, sort of has their own thing and their own ways of dealing with it. It's just a matter of trying to learn one extra way to have the conversation, or one extra way to behave that's healthier. Other questions or comments? Yes, about mandated reporting. Yes. There are certain people who are mandated reporters. That's a whole legal thing. And that gets really complicated.
I will say one thing, that my wife and I have been married, we're coming up on 41 years.
Wow.
Second time around. But one of the things that we talked about before we tied the knot was that we each have our own credit cards, bank accounts. Now, we do use them both interchangeably, but still, I think that's very important for any couple today, or even for the last 40 years.
Plus respect for each other.
Right.
Oh, sounds like that's how you lasted for 41 years.
Right.
I mean, I remember when I got to college, and remember Sears, and Sears was sending everybody little things where they could get a credit card. My mother said, immediately sign up for this. I mean, she knew, right? She knew she was trying to make an independent daughter, and she said, immediately do it. Even if I have to pay the bill, do it. Start making your own credit.
That's right. That's exactly right. We, like you said, we've been married, it's coming up on 41. And yeah, we have disagreements, but we have never had any really
People, a lot of
deep
people that
problems. It's always been
Respect-
kite,
Respectfully.
respectfully, right? And we're still, we wouldn't know what to do without each other.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's that-
So I'm going to interrupt. I think Kathy and Gail, maybe 2 more questions,
Okay.
if there are any.
I hope this works for the people who were on the phone and couldn't see the screen though, too. So
Carol and Gail, I have a question. What you just mentioned a little while ago about the Super Bowl and March Madness, etc. And it brings to mind that right now in Arlington, Texas, in the midst of a pandemic, there's a World Series going on. Have you heard whether or not there are any sting operations that perhaps are going to be taking place down in Arlington?
no, we're not privy to what Tom Dart does. We find out like you when it's in the newspaper. Usually
everyone's on one.
usually when they do these, they have to process the folks and book them and all that stuff. So you don't hear about it until like a month later after they've been, arraigned and all that stuff. So no, we never know. I just look for them because I know with these big events, they often have them. And I'm very curious about how they're going to handle it during COVID. Because believe me, it's not, I don't think it's going to stop just because of a little virus.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think we should be of the opinion that because it's a pandemic and there's not nearly as many people in that stadium, that it's not happening.
Right. And often it's all going around the outside of the stadium. It's just a whole business. It's the party for the whole week. Super Bowl is really not one day, it's a week. And so these things go on every night beforehand. And, when Robert Kraft was caught in Florida, you know what day it was? It was the Super Bowl. He got caught, I think, at 11 o'clock in the morning and then flew to the Patriots game for the Super Bowl. So, I mean, come on. I think that's the story. I may have it off a little bit, but it for sure was the weekend that he got caught. And he wasn't where the Super Bowl was being played.
Okay, we'll take one more question if there is one. Okay, then I'm going to thank both Kathy and Gail very much for a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I feel very enlightened, and I already knew somewhat, a lot of information about sex trafficking. So again, thank you both so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Okay, it's our pleasure. And if anyone wants, maybe I should put my email address if anyone wants any more information, or should you put yours into the chat, or what would
you can put your own in and we can send you some information. We can send you some follow-up information. We could probably, pare down the slides if anybody wants it. So, or you can contact Diane.
Yeah, and I'm going to just put, for those of you who don't know me.
And you go to ncjwcns.org to look up our programs and some of the things we're doing as well.
Let me NCJWC. NCJ. Oh, you're putting it in. Okay.
And of course, if you we have lots more to get on our listserv and learn more about that as well, and we can give you the links. So you're happy to contact us for that information as well.
And when we have like a drive to collect things for the survivors or the women on the street, you know, we can let Diane know and she can send it out to you and you can participate.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
Thank-
then it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so give to your favorite shelter, please. Or your favorite organization.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.